AEW Double or Nothing 3 is next Sunday from Daly's Place. They have nearly 4,000 tickets sold already with a capacity of about 5,000. I am going to be live on YouTube on Wednesday night, even though Dynamite will not be. It is being preempted to Friday night at 10 o'clock due to the NBA. I am going to be live instead at 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday when Dynamite would normally be going on the air. I'll be streaming my Double or Nothing predictions and probably taking some phone calls, which I have not done in a while. So if you are not watching the NBA, and frankly, even if you are, I hope that you will join me then, and then after the pay-per-view next Sunday for my full recap. The big news this week, though, was Warner Media dropping a bomb on Wednesday announcing that AEW Dynamite will be moving. Not moving nights, still going to be on Wednesdays at 8 p.m., but moving from TNT to TBS starting in January of next year. They will not be off TNT completely, though. TNT is going to air 4 annual specials, so 1 per quarter, very similar to how TBS used to air the WCW Clash of the Champions specials. I was going to say Saturday night's main event, but that was not quarterly. Clash of the Champions, I believe, was quarterly, I think. We also have a name and a premiere date for the second AEW show, which will be a 1-hour series starting out on TNT, and then it will migrate over to TBS next year when Dynamite does the same. The show will be called AEW Rampage, debuting on Friday, August 13th at 10 p.m. Eastern, Friday the 13th. Trying to get that SmackDown lead in. And the show is likely to be taped on Wednesdays on most weeks, except for pay-per-view weekends where it would air live the night before. So if you have a pay-per-view on a Saturday, you would have a live Rampage on that Friday. Now, I was not aware of this until Meltzer mentioned it, and I had one person, I think, either tweeted me or emailed me, I forgot who it was, might have been an email, asking me if it is wise for a company that has not been around for very long, if it is wise for AEW to have another hour of television. Is it too much? Is it too soon? Why is this happening? And this kind of ties into it. Now, Meltzer mentioned in The Observer this week that when AEW negotiated its new agreement with TNT at the beginning of last year, this is right before COVID hit, they being the network, they wanted to expand Dynamite. And we kind of joked about it at the time because USA is the network that wanted WWE to move Raw to 3 hours. That's why Raw went to 3 hours. It was not a Vince McMahon call. It was a USA Network call, and they were going to pay them a lot of money, and so they did it. And now we've had almost a decade of 3-hour Raws, and Raw has just gotten progressively worse ever since. I mean, it's gotten worse for a lot of different reasons, but the show being 3 hours every week is an absolute chore because they don't have the creative wits about them to make a 3-hour television show on a week-to-week basis interesting. So it sucks. And it waters down the product when you have to sit through 3 hours every week of that show. In this case, when they were negotiating their agreement last year, TNT wanted to expand Dynamite to 3 hours every week from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Does this sound familiar? Tony Khan had enough, and I don't care what you think about him, but in this case, Tony Khan had enough sense to know that would have been a terrible idea. So the compromise was taking that extra hour that would have been on Wednesdays, breaking it off, and doing it on a different night, which is much better. Having a 2-hour show on one night and an hour-long show on a completely different night, much better idea. But that's where this second show comes from. If TNT had their way, we would have had a 3-hour Dynamite every week. And guess what? Even if you like Dynamite, you think it's better than Raw, that would have sucked too. That would not have been a good idea. What a fucking disaster that would have been. 3 hours of any wrestling show on a week-to-week basis, not talking pay-per-views, is just too long. And it will burn out your audience. Tony Khan has learned the lessons of Monday Night Raw. Rampage is not going to be an extension of Dark, where it is filled with matches with people that most, viewers may not know. It's basically going to be a 3rd hour of Dynamite, but on a different night. So think about what Sunday Night Heat used to be when it first debuted during the Attitude Era. Sunday Night Heat used to have a lot of their bigger names on that show before that show ultimately fell off. Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful also broke the news on Fightful Select that the Full Gear pay-per-view will be taking place on Saturday, November 6th from St. Louis, Missouri, with a live Rampage on TNT the night before from the same venue at the Chaffetz Arena. Now, AEW is said to be getting a lot of money out of this deal. PW Insider said the word going around internally is that they're getting somewhere in the area of an 8-figure payday from Warner Media out of this. TBS is available in about 1 million more homes than TNT, so when you're talking about networks that are in 80, 90 million homes, 1 million more, it's basically a wash. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. The key is that it's not in fewer homes. That's the good thing. You're not moving to a channel that's going to be in 5, 10, 15 million fewer homes than where you were before. And I said on Wednesday during my stream, this is pretty much a lateral move. You know, network-wise, it's not really an upgrade, but it's not much of a downgrade either. And regarding the TNT title, Tony Khan told The Observer his plan is to keep the title, but he has a different Turner idea that he thinks is cool. And I don't know what that is, but Turner used to have a television title for WCW, which I think would make a perfect option if they're going to make any kind of change. It would make perfect sense to just have a television title, and then you can have TNT and TBS logo side plates on the belt if you want. Brian Weitz is the general manager of TNT and TBS. This is what he told, I think he told Deadline Hollywood. Did the NHL have anything to do with it? Sure. NHL had something to do with it. NBA had something to do with it. The college schedule, the ton of preemptions. When we looked where the consumer is going to be, where wrestling fans were going to be, we want to give them the most opportunity to consume as many shows as possible. We felt TBS had an opportunity to be the network and the best platform for expansion. Oh, the NFL rights deal, or the NHL rights deal, had a little more than something to do with this. It clearly had a lot to do with this. It's probably the overarching reason why the show is moving in the first place. TBS does air Major League Baseball playoff games, so that could be an issue a few times a year. But there's nothing I've heard or have read about this week that would lead me to believe that this is anything but a plus for AEW. So if you are an AEW fan, you should be happy that Warner seems to be doubling down on them and not giving up on them. That's a good sign. As these next couple of years go on before their deal comes up for renewal. And the more content they have, it's kind of like WWE. Why does WWE produce so much content? Well, they get paid for it, but also because when it comes time for rights negotiations, you have all of these networks that they just want content. Content is king. So if WWE has 3 hours of Raw and 2 hours of SmackDown, an hour of this, 2 hours of that, you know, even if it's not good television in a lot of cases, it does bring value. AEW seems to be following the same formula. That should bode well for them in a couple of years when they either have to renew with Warner or maybe they move and go somewhere else. But again, I don't see this as being a bad thing. And New Japan News, who announced on Thursday that its IWGP World Heavyweight Title was vacated due to a neck injury to its champion, Will Ospreay. Their statement reads as follows. On May 4th's Night 2 of Wrestling Dontaku from Fukuoka, Will Ospreay sustained a neck injury. As a result, Ospreay will not be participating in the next series of events and will instead return to the UK for treatment and rehabilitation. There is no timetable for his return to action at this time, and as a result, his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship will be vacated. Further announcements on the status of the title will be made at a later date. Welp, so much for CM Punk saying he wanted to wrestle Will Ospreay, and let's wait until the summer to see if he's still the champion. That pretty much jinxed things, didn't it? You know, look, it really sucks for him because this was his big break. He was finally IWGP Heavyweight Champion. He only had the title since April 4th, the beginning of last month. Not a very long run. But it was showing a lot of promise to be a run that he could go on where he could just churn out all of these great matches. You know, he beat Shingo Takagi on that Wrestling Dontaku show, which apparently is where he hurt himself. They had a Match of the Year candidate. And he was preparing for a defense against Okada at the Tokyo Dome on May 29th before the show was postponed due to another COVID state of emergency in Japan, which is in effect through the end of this month. Okada's got his own injury problems. He's got, you know, the discs in his back are all wrecked, at least a couple of them. There's no telling how bad Ospreay's injury is. They gave us no information on it. He has not said anything specific about the injury, if he'll need surgery and how long he'll be out for. And right now, New Japan has no champion. Now, their next big show is the Dominion show on June 6th. If Okada's back can hold up, you know, he would give them stability in the top spot right now. But, you know, it's been done to death to just put the belt back on Okada. Kota Ibushi served, I think, as a good champion. But again, like Ospreay, not a very long run. You know, he won the championship at the beginning of the year. And how long did he have it for? You know, a couple of months? He deserved a longer run with it. He also turned 39 years old on Friday. The man is a fucking vampire. Shingo would be a great choice, but he just lost. Fair and square, he lost to the champion. I would love to see Minoru Suzuki get a short run with the belt. Why not? I feel like it's now or never. Why not? But I had this thought too. And I run this past you. I know this is not something New Japan is used to doing, but I was thinking about the G1. Do we know, by the way, if it's being delayed again to later this year? I have not heard anything. If it's being delayed again because of the Olympics or whatnot. If not, then the G1 is coming up soon. It's coming up within the next couple of months. And I think it would be really cool if this year's G1 Climax was contested for the vacant IWGP Championship. The winner becomes IWGP Heavyweight Champion. That would be one way for them to raise the stakes. Make things a little more interesting. But things seem to be a mess right now for New Japan. COVID has just wreaked havoc on everything. Just when it looks like things are starting to slowly get back to a degree of normal with WWE and AEW, it doesn't seem that way with New Japan. You know, their world champion goes down with an injury. Jay White tested positive for COVID, and he's stuck in quarantine. He's the current never open weight champion. I don't even know the last time their U.S. title was actually defended in Japan. We just saw it defended on TNT. But when the last title defense took place in Japan, I couldn't even tell you. Now there's reports of unrest among a lot of the foreign talent, some of them who want out. Fit Finlay was on JBL's podcast talking about his son David Finlay possibly wanting to come to WWE and get him the hell out of Japan. It just seems like a mess, and I hope that they can sort everything out quickly.